She hadn't left her house in almost a year. Outside, the world went on. Cars drove by, dogs barked, neighbors waved. But inside, Claire Holston watched from her window and saw something she was never meant to see. A woman screaming, a flash of red, a body gone in seconds. The problem? No one believes her. If everyone says you're wrong but your eyes tell you the truth, what do you believe? You're not just watching a mystery, you're listening to English, understanding real sentences, and training your brain just by enjoying a story. Learning English through stories like this helps you improve naturally. You hear vocabulary in context, you feel the emotion, and you remember the words. That's the magic. So, what would you do if you saw something terrifying and no one believed you? Tell us in the comments. And stay till the end, because the truth behind this window, it's darker than you think. Subscribe to Epic English Stories and let every story sharpen your English and open your mind. Now let's begin. Claire Holston hadn't stepped outside in 12 days. Her curtains, like velvet guardians, stayed mostly drawn. She lived alone in a vintage brownstone, filled with dusty books, cold cups of tea, and shadows that whispered in corners. Once a respected therapist, Claire now spent her days peering out of her second-floor window through a pair of antique binoculars. Why did she never leave? The neighbors said she was fragile. But Claire didn't feel fragile. She felt alert. Watching kept her mind sharp. She studied people's lives from a distance, writing notes in her journal like she was cataloging a collection of human mysteries. Then, one rainy evening, a family moved into the yellow house across the street. The Langstons, a man, a woman, and a teenage boy. Claire noted them with casual curiosity, until something odd happened. The woman waved at her. She smiled. She mouthed, "I see you." Claire didn't expect the woman from across the street to visit. But the knock on the door came 3 days later. Claire hesitated, then opened it slightly. The woman stood there, charming, elegant, and kind-eyed. Her name was Evelyn Langston. She said she just wanted to say hello. Claire invited her in, cautiously. They drank tea, talked about music, books, and how Claire once helped people find peace through therapy. Evelyn seemed genuinely interested. For a moment, Claire forgot the panic that usually lived in her chest. But when Evelyn left, something felt off. Claire couldn't explain it. It wasn't what Evelyn said. It was what she didn't say. There was a tremble in her smile, a bruise under her sleeve, a fear she tried to bury. Claire wrote it all down and kept watching. The scream pierced the night like broken glass. Claire jolted awake, her breath shallow. She ran to the window. Lights blazed in the Langston house. The boy stood on the lawn, barefoot, crying. Claire reached for her phone, but her hands shook too much. The police arrived, then left. No one explained what had happened. The next morning, Claire saw Mr. Langston waving at the mailman with a calm smile. But Evelyn? Gone. Claire tried calling. She left a message, then another, then a note on their door. No response. So she asked Mr. Langston directly, "Where's your wife?" He raised an eyebrow. "My wife's been abroad for 3 months. Evelyn isn't here." Claire blinked. "I had tea with her last week." He gave a puzzled smile. "You must be mistaken. Perhaps you saw someone else." She knew what she saw, didn't she? Claire tore through her journal, flipping pages like they were burning. "I wrote it down. I wrote everything." There it was, under April 3rd. Evelyn Langston, bruise on arm, piano hands, smelled of vanilla and smoke, talked about her son's anxiety. It happened. She was here. She existed. To prove it, Claire turned to her old DSLR camera, the one she used for bird watching before she became afraid of the sky. She scrolled through hundreds of pictures, mailmen, joggers, squirrels, and yes, there, a woman in the Langstons' living room playing the piano. Her face wasn't visible, but the posture, the dress, it had to be Evelyn. Claire printed the photo, taped it to the wall. She wasn't losing her mind, but the more she stared at the photo, the more doubt crept in. What if it was someone else? What if her mind, cluttered with memories, medications, and months of isolation, was rewriting reality? A soft knock startled her. Claire looked through the peephole. It was the boy, Jamie Langston. His eyes were red, and he clutched something in his fist. Claire opened the door cautiously. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. Jamie looked over his shoulder. "You saw her, didn't you?" "My mom?" Claire's heart pounded. "Yes, of course I did." Jamie opened his fist. A silver charm bracelet rested on his palm. "She gave me this the night she disappeared. But my dad says she left, took nothing." Claire reached out but paused. "What are you trying to tell me?" The boy's voice shook. "If you say you saw her too, then maybe I'm not crazy." He handed her the bracelet. "I need someone to believe me." That night, Claire stayed up late, digging through old therapy case files she had kept locked in a metal drawer. It was a violation of every rule she once believed in, but she needed to feel in control again, to connect with something rational, something she could solve. She found a file from 7 years ago. A patient named Melissa Trent, paranoid delusions, claimed her neighbor had kidnapped her daughter. The daughter never existed. Melissa was later diagnosed with the schizoaffective disorder. Claire read it 3 times, then stared into the mirror. What if I'm Melissa now? Then she spotted the bracelet on her desk. It was engraved. To Jamie, love, Mom. Her hand trembled. She was real. I'm not making her up. But someone wanted her to doubt that, and Claire began to realize this wasn't just about a missing woman. Someone across the street was watching her back. The next morning, her internet was down. Claire didn't think much of it until she checked her window camera. The wire had been cut, clean, sharp, professional. She ran to her notebooks, her hard drives, her photo folders. Nothing had been touched, but the silence felt heavier now. Was someone inside her house while she slept? She called the police, told them everything. The missing woman, the visit, the photo. They came. They looked. They listened. And they said, gently, "Miss Halston, there's no evidence a woman named Evelyn Langston ever lived at that address. The house is owned by Ronald Langston. He's a widower. His wife died 3 years ago in Colorado." Claire almost dropped the bracelet. "Then who did I talk to?" The officer paused. "You've been under a lot of stress. We recommend you see someone." Claire nodded politely, but deep inside, something turned cold. This wasn't just gaslighting. This was a cover-up. Claire stood by the window at dusk, binoculars tight in her grip. The Langston house looked ordinary, too ordinary. A boy playing video games, Mr. Langston on the phone. Curtains half drawn. No signs of Evelyn. But then, movement. A flicker behind the curtain in the upstairs room. A shape. A hand? It gripped the edge of the fabric and vanished quickly, like it knew she was watching. Claire grabbed her camera and snapped. Flash off. 1, 2. 3 clicks. The shadow moved again. Someone was up there. The next morning, she reviewed the photos. 2 were empty. But in the third, something glinted behind the curtain. A faint outline of a face. Eyes wide, mouth open, as if about to scream. It wasn't Evelyn. It wasn't Jamie. It wasn't Mr. Langston. Who else was in that house? Jamie came again 2 nights later. His hoodie was soaked with rain. Claire let him in without asking. Something's wrong, he whispered. He said, she's dead, but I heard her. Claire leaned in. He told you Evelyn is dead? Jamie nodded. He says I imagined everything, that I need help, but I heard her crying from the attic. She called my name. Claire's mouth went dry. Have you been up there? Jamie shook his head. It's always locked, but last night I saw light coming from under the door. Claire stared at him. Do you trust me, Jamie? He nodded slowly. Then help me get inside that house. Jamie stole the spare key from under a flower pot while Mr. Langston was out jogging. At midnight, Claire dressed in black. Her heart thundered. It had been nearly a year since she'd set foot outside, but this mattered more than her fear. She crossed the street in the dark. Jamie unlocked the door, his hands shaking. Inside, the house smelled of lavender and bleach. Attics this way, he whispered, pointing to a narrow staircase at the end of the hall. Claire followed him quietly, the steps creaking like old bones. They reached the attic door. Locked. Jamie reached into his pocket and pulled out a paperclip. Learned this from YouTube. 3 clicks. A soft snap. The door opened. The attic was cold. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts. And in the center of the room was a chair. Straps. Padding. A tray with untouched food. And next to it, a photo frame. Evelyn's face. Smiling. Claire stepped forward, stunned. He kept her here. Jamie looked pale. She's gone now. But she was here, wasn't she? Claire didn't answer. She walked to the far wall. Scratched into the wood were words. I see you. Please don't forget me. Suddenly, headlights flared outside. Mr. Langston was home. Hide! Claire hissed. They ducked behind a chest of old toys just as the front door slammed open. Jamie! His voice thundered. Jamie, are you here? The attic stairs creaked. He was coming. Claire pressed her hand over Jamie's mouth, both of them crouched behind the old toy chest. Her pulse pounded so loudly she feared he could hear it. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Climbing the attic stairs, the door creaked open wider, and the floor groaned under his weight. Then, silence. Claire held her breath. The beam of a flashlight swept across the room. It passed over the chair, the scratched message on the wall, the tray of food, and then stopped. Claire clutched Jamie tighter. The flashlight stayed still for a moment too long. Then a voice, cold and calculated. So, you finally came to see. Another step forward. Then 2. You know, he said softly, people don't believe a shut-in or a troubled boy. But he chuckled. I've always been very believable. Suddenly, Claire stood. That ends tonight. Mr. Langston turned, surprised, and in that instant, Jamie lunged. He knocked the flashlight from his father's hand. They struggled. Claire grabbed a broken wooden chair leg and swung. Crack! Mr. Langston collapsed to the floor, groaning. Call the police, Claire told Jamie, trembling. Now! The police came swiftly. Jamie's call had been frantic and clear. Mr. Langston was arrested. In the attic, officers found all they needed. Fingerprints, Evelyn's belongings, her medical prescriptions, and, most disturbingly, several video recordings from a hidden camera he had placed in Claire's window across the street. Claire's testimony was powerful, and Jamie's bracelet evidence undeniable. But the hardest part came after. Evelyn's body was never found. He must have moved her, Jamie whispered at the police station. When he saw me talking to you. Claire nodded. But we proved she existed. We proved what he did. 12 months later, Claire stood outside, on her own, on the sidewalk. She wore a green scarf, the same one Evelyn had admired during their tea that day. Her fear had not vanished, but it had softened. She walked to the coffee shop on the corner, sat by the window, and there, walking toward her with his backpack and a quiet smile, was Jamie. He handed her a small book. I've been writing down everything I remember. About her, about you. Claire opened it. On the first page, for Evelyn Langston, and for the woman who watched until someone finally listened. Claire blinked back tears. She wasn't just the woman in the window. She was real. And now, so am I. When truth is buried in silence, it takes a witness to bring it into the light. In the end, Claire wasn't just a woman trapped in her fears. She became the voice for someone who could no longer speak. She saw the truth. She stood up. And she changed everything. Because sometimes, you don't need to leave the house to see the truth. You just need the courage to speak it. And just like Claire found her strength, you are finding yours. Every time you listen to a story in English, you're not just hearing words, you're understanding meaning. You're learning sentence structure, emotion, and pronunciation, all while being part of a powerful journey. This is more than a mystery. It's your classroom. Each twist helps you remember new vocabulary. Every emotion helps you connect deeper. And every line you listen to brings you one step closer to English fluency. So, what did you learn from Claire's journey? And what will you dare to do with the English you're learning now? If this story moved you, if you learned even one new word, like comment and subscribe to Epic English Stories, because every story is a lesson. And your journey to fluency, it starts here with the next story.